How has the Byzantine Empire shaped and refocused future society to come, while thriving from an economical, cultural, and religious perspective? The origins of the Byzantine Empire were vast. Originally begun as part of a whole Roman Empire, it practically split into half. The eastern half of the Roman Empire essentially became the Byzantine Empire. The word Byzantine comes from the word Byzantium. This was the name of an ancient Greek colony that was founded by a man named Byzas. The colony was on the European side of the Bosporus, which was the strait that connected the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. Byzantium served as a transit and trade port between Europe and Asia. The population of Constantinople during the 12th century was around 400,000. The density varied greatly between different neighborhoods. As for the empire as a whole, it had a population of 7 million by the end of the 8th century. This kept rising to over 12 million during the mid-10th century, and then falling to 9 million during the 12th, and to even lower to 5 million with the arrival of the Ottomans. The Golden Age was when the Byzantine experienced flourishment. Advances in military strength, religious influence, and art, all occurring during the reign of Justinian. The empire expanded territories into Western Europe, prompting for the construction of the Hagia Sophia. In 330 AD, Roman Emperor Constantine I chose the location of Byzantium to be what was called New Rome, and named its capital Constantinople. This provided the city with a new status as the political capital of the Roman Empire. Roman law was used to educate the elite, ruling by a system called Corpus Juris Civilis, also known as the body of civil law. This was the collection of fundamental works in jurisprudence put into use by Emperor Justinian I. Sometimes it was called the Code of Justinian. Damn, this man was a narcissist. Greek and Roman culture was used to maintain an organized government focused on the court and the great cities of the Byzantine Empire. Byzantine life and class distinction. Early marriage in the Byzantine Empire was incredibly common. Girls were getting married at the age of 12, while boys were getting married at the age of 14. Consent and involvement from parents was a given, and the marriage was considered a binding contract. Remarrying was allowed as long as a suitable time period passed by a widow, and third marriages were very rare. Justinian I's laws prohibited divorce unless both parties consented to retire to a monastic life, which was a monk life. Constantine I established Christianity to be New Rome's official religion. As the Byzantine Empire transitioned from New Rome to what it became, the Council of Chalcedon in 451 established the division of the Christian world into separate patriarchies, including Rome, along with Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. Women had many different roles to play at this time. Although they did many jobs similar to men, some special ones they did were acting as midwives, medical practitioners, washerwomen, cooks, matchmakers, actresses, and the major one, prostitutes. Along with these, if they had the capabilities, they could own their own businesses. The lower class differed from the higher drastically. Lower class families had their children follow the profession of their parents, such as craftsmen and food producers. They ate food like vegetables, cereals, coarse bread, eggs, cheese, and fruit. On the rare special occasion, meat and fish were a splurge. They lived in multi-story houses called insulae. These were grouped but separate buildings that provided economically practical houses. The higher class families usually had the means to acquire special education and secure jobs such as lawyers, accountants, scribes, and diplomatic positions. They ate foods such as wild birds, hares, pork, lamb, olive oil, rare spices from the East, expensive wine, and desserts stuffed with currants, nuts, cinnamon, and honey. These families lived in multi-roomed houses that contained courtyards, gardens, fountains, and sometimes a chapel. In death, people were buried in specific cemeteries outside of the town. Higher-class families typically have carved gravestones and a commemoration for the dead. When it came to clothing, the aristocracy wore fine clothes, many made of silk imported from China and Phoenicia, which was an ancient civilization along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea that stretched through present-day Syria, Lebanon, and northern Palestine. Nobles wore clothes that were dyed with Tyrian purple, extracted from murex shellfish, to set them apart from commoners who were banned from wearing the colour. The rich Byzantines liked to wear gold, silver, and gemstone jewellery. Fashion rules still existed for the rich. Emperor Justinian I decreed one. He was allowed to embellish things with pears, emeralds, or hyacinths. Poorer members of society had to make do with woolen tunics and long bland cloaks. For entertainment, the streets were filled with jugglers, acrobats, beggars, food and drink vendors, idlers, prostitutes, fortune-tellers, lunatics, holy men, ascetics, and preachers. Here's a quote for the great and super-righteous Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. "Glory to God who has thought me worthy to finish this work. Solomon, I have outdone you." This is the Hagia Sophia, located in present-day Istanbul, Turkey. The architecture of the Byzantine Empire was a breakthrough. What made these works of art so special was their characteristics, like the dome roofs. Columns help up these domes and interlocks into an octagon figure to keep the domes stable. Typically were half-domes known as apses. Greek cross plans were implemented in more structures. To keep with the theme of Orthodox Christianity, most architects designed floor plans in the shape of the cross. Another characteristic was iconography, which was the art that decorated the walls of the churches. With vibrant colours and elegant mouldings and walkways, artworks adorned the inside of Byzantine architecture. Some works of architecture include the Basilica of Sant Apollinare Nuovo, Basilica of San Vital, and St. Mark's Basilica in present-day Italy, Our Lady of Saitnaya Monastery in present-day Syria, Jose Lucas in present-day Greece, Hagia Irene, Karai Mosque, Church of the Holy Apostles, and Hagia Sophia in present-day Turkey. The Hagia Sophia was originally built as a Christian cathedral, designed by Greek geometers Isidore of Miletus and Anthemius of Tralles. Built between 532 and 537, its creation was a turning point for Byzantine's architecture. Hailing in the capital, Constantinople, this wonder was turned into a mosque when it was conquered during the Ottoman raids. The economy of the Byzantine Empire was thriving. In regions such as Anatolia, the Levant, and Egypt, it had been well developed agriculturally that brought huge amounts of tax revenue. Places like Egypt contributed 30% of the annual tax. The climate all over the Byzantine Empire was very suitable for farming. In coastal regions, cereal crops, vines, and olives were being mass-produced. In more inland regions, raising livestock or many kinds was a priority. In urban regions, fruits and vegetables were being gardened. Property laws were very much so a thing back then. Land was beginning to be in possession of four and fewer noble families. To counter this, the emperors passed land laws, which was the Byzantine version of modern-day real estate law, was put in place to prevent alienation of land from small landholding farmers. This completely changed the landscape of Byzantium, being the cause for the replacement of small villages into large estates. Modern-day gentrification. Trade was a major element for the Byzantine economy. The capital was in a prime location for many trade routes, branching all over the 3 continents it inhabited. A 10% import and export tax rate was implemented to maximize profits. Silk, oil, wine, sail, fish, meat, timber, wax, ceramics, linens, cloth, spices, and perfumes were of the few things being traded. Trade also played a role with diplomatic relations with Bulgaria and Russia. Maintaining trade relations meant maintaining peace and acquiring more power. The currency used was hyperpera. This was the currency that replaced numismata, which is the Greek word for coin. In 1025, the annual revenue was at 5.9 million, and the treasury reverse was at 14.4 million. Safe to say, the rich didn't stay rich for much longer. The loss of land was detrimental for the economy of the Byzantine Empire. During the first Muslim conquests, Arabs invaded the Levant, Egypt, and North Africa. The Balkans were lost to the Slavic people. Losses of eastern land was the greatest hit to the Byzantine Empire's economy because they contributed to 75% of it. The population took a major hit too, drastically shrinking. Eventually, the empire started to lose more land to Serbian and Ottoman aggressors, and the aftermath of that left the annual state revenue at 1 million hyperpera. This is a picture of a gold solidus, or solid gold coin. This one is specific and was sold for 950. The idiot who bought this got scammed. This is a map of the Byzantine Empire and its surroundings. One thing to point out is how the Byzantine Empire was spread out between Europe, Asia, and Africa. The Byzantine Empire has many enemies. The Goths were the Germanic peoples. They posed as one of the more difficult enemies for the Byzantines. They frequently raided and invaded Byzantine territory in the Italian and Balkan regions. The Persians were deemed as the main enemies of the Byzantines for a majority of history. Persians and Byzantines clashed for territory and influence over the Middle East, usually fighting over trade routes that were important for their economic development. The Persians had much more money and were more militarily threatening. The Nomads, Huns, Bulgars, Avars, Khazars, Hungarians, Pechenegs and Cumans were more minor conflicts and didn't pose much of a threat to the Byzantine Empire. They primarily wanted land that was in the south, which was cattle-herding land. The biggest enemy to the Byzantines were the Ottomans. Aside from the Ottoman Empire as a whole, one specific man, Ertugrul Gazi, was one of the most feared of the Ottoman Turks. He was the chief of the Kei tribe and assisted the Seljuks, who were another major enemy to the Byzantines with the conflict. Here's a short clip of a fight sequence between Ertugrul and the Byzantines.
Madem Tanrı kullarına zulmetmez, sen kafirliğinle neden bize zulmedersin be adam? Adamlarımı öldüren o hain sendin demek.
O zalimlerin komutanı da sensin demek.
The Russian Primary Chronicle was a chronicle written by Kievan Rus and others that dates back to the 9th century. It is a telling of mostly Russian affairs, but includes some interactions with the Byzantines, and information on that can be useful when analysing the Byzantine Empire. Some things that the Russian Primary Chronicle mentions that is in relation to the Byzantine Empire are the following. The Byzantine engineers built the Chagan, which was the imperial rank for Turkic and Mongolian people, the fortified town of Sarkit, strengthening relations with neighbouring territories. The Byzantines aided and established the Sviatoslav attack on the Khazars, a nomadic Turkic commercial empire, by distracting the Syrian campaigns against Emir of Aleppo and Crete, the Greek protectorate. The Byzantine authority in Crimea was restored during the second decade of the 11th century as far east as Bosporus, Strait in Turkey, and Kerch city in southern Ukraine. Seljuks' threat places the Byzantine Empire in one of the most critical situations of its entire history, leading up to the fall of the empire by the Ottomans. The fall of the Byzantine Empire came in the year 1453. Ottoman Empire's Sultan Mehmed II conquered Constantinople during a 55-day siege on the capital, with the help of cannons to bombard the walls with massive cannonballs. Adding to the fall of the empire, the economy was already on a downfall with civil wars and political instability that was showing to never return to its original thriving state. The loss of trade routes and territories created issues within the empire, along with the declining military strength in comparison to the enemies the empire has accumulated throughout the years. The capital was eventually renamed to Istanbul, and the Hagia Sophia was turned into a mosque, along with many other changes. So how did the Byzantine Empire shape and refocus future society? When you look at the impact of the Byzantine Empire as a whole, you start to understand what it truly meant for history. Its spread of Orthodox Christianity throughout Europe, Africa and Asia brought Christianity to the Slavic countries, Greece, the Balkans, and many other places all over the continents. Through confusion can arise on the cultural impact of the Byzantine Empire, the hidden truth of it is that the cultural aspect of the Byzantines was heavily intertwined with its religion, and in some ways was its religion. Ingrained into its art, its literary works, architecture, and societal norms, some of which can be found today, continues to hold a presence. Although the Byzantine economy died out much before its fall, the impact it still holds is in its trade routes and in spread of luxury goods. The trade networks established by the Byzantine Empire created a legacy and commercial practice that in some ways are still being observed. With its fall being a tragic one, it left enough on an impact to the point where the Ottoman Empire could not erase how monumental it was.